You know, have you ever stopped to think about how you actually divide something that is constantly moving? It's a pretty profound dilemma when you think about it. When a vital, flowing resource, like a river, crosses these artificial borders we've drawn on a map, who gets to claim it? How do you balance the literal survival of a farmer upstream with the thirst of an entire city downstream? It's a puzzle that's defined human civilization for millennia, and today, well, it's sparking some of the most intense legal and political battles in modern history.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're decoding the incredibly complex, highly charged issue of India's interstate river disputes. We're going to be specifically looking at the Cauvery and Krishna rivers. And right off the bat, you should know this isn't just about water. It's about history, climate, agriculture, and really, baseline survival. We're going to break down the mechanics of these disputes using the data and the historical record to understand exactly what's driving these conflicts, and more importantly, how they might actually be resolved.
Okay, here is our agenda for today. We have 1. Rivers in conflict, 2. The Almatti Dam dispute, 3. Historical and political roots, 4. The climate change multiplier, and 5. Charting the way forward. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. Rivers in conflict. The symptoms. Okay, let's dive into this. The symptoms of these disputes. They always seem to present as a clash of absolute necessities. On one hand, you have upstream states like Karnataka that desperately need to catch rainfall for their growing interior populations. But then, on the other hand, downstream states like Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh are facing these totally parched agricultural belts if that flow gets restricted. Both sides have completely legitimate life-or-death stakes here, which makes finding a middle ground incredibly difficult.
Section 2. The Almatti Dam dispute. Escalating tensions.
To really understand this in real time, let's look at the Almatti Dam on the Krishna River, 524.26 meters. That specific number is literally at the absolute center of a massive tug of war. Karnataka wants to increase the dam's height to this exact level so they can store more water. But Maharashtra has vigorously challenged this in the Supreme Court. The core issue here is that managing a river basin means any alteration, any new infrastructure upstream or downstream has immediate, super tangible impacts across those state lines.
And those impacts? They aren't just theoretical. Tracing the recent timeline, Maharashtra argues that increasing the dam's height directly exacerbates the devastating floods they've seen in downstream districts. I mean, look at this. We saw severe flooding in 2005, major infrastructure damage in 2019, and crippling agricultural loss in 2021. It just goes to show that water infrastructure isn't just about preparing for a drought, it's a critical matter of public safety and sticking strictly to flood management guidelines.
Section 3. Historical and political roots. The underlying conditions.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound paradox the data reveals. When you look at the actual basin data, Karnataka contributes a higher amount of rainfall to the catchment area, yet historically, they consume less water. Conversely, the downstream states contribute less to the catchment but have much higher consumption. So, you have to ask yourself, why does this massive imbalance even exist?
Well, to answer that, we have to look back at history. As the analyst K. Balagopal pointed out, the root cause is unequal historical advantage. Back in the mid-19th century, which is long before modern linguistic state borders were even a concept, by the way, the British administration built dams on both the Krishna and Cauvery rivers. And these projects fundamentally favored coastal regions, basically developing their irrigation infrastructure first. Over the decades, those early irrigated areas grew way faster. They developed heavily water-dependent agriculture, and that structurally baked in this massive inequality. So the modern disputes we see today, they are, in a lot of ways, the interior regions finally pushing back against an asymmetrical distribution of resources that was set in motion over 150 years ago. If you view these disputes purely through the lens of modern state rivalries, you're missing this absolutely vital historical context.
Section 4. The climate change multiplier. An environmental catalyst.
Let's move to and see how this builds when we introduce a modern crisis into the mix. This climate diplomacy model illustrates exactly how environmental factors act as a massive threat multiplier. Step 1. You get intense, erratic extreme weather events. That directly leads to Step 2, completely unpredictable water scarcity. And when the total pie shrinks like that, those historical imbalances we just talked about cascade into Step 3, where dormant grievances erupt into active, heated interstate tensions.
Section 5. Charting the way forward. The prescription.
So what does this all mean? How do we actually fix a system that's burdened by history and heavily strained by climate change? The consensus points really heavily toward institutionalizing the solutions. A key mechanism here is the establishment of bodies like the long-proposed Cauvery Management Board.
Setting up a regulatory authority like this is necessary to take the day-to-day management of the river completely out of the hands of competing political entities. We need an impartial, scientifically grounded body to neutrally enforce tribunal orders, depoliticize the disputes, and manage planning at the basin level. That way, decisions are made based on actual hydrology and equity, not just the next electoral cycle. So the crucial point is that a legal fix alone just isn't enough. We need holistic, on-the-ground transformation. We're talking about real basin-level planning, where we treat the river as a single, connected, living entity. We need grassroots diplomacy, like the Cauvery Family Initiative, where farmers are actually cooperating and building empathy across state borders. We absolutely need river recharge through massive afforestation, strict adoption of micro-irrigation, and perhaps most vitally of all, shifting crops away from water-heavy varieties toward climate-resilient indigenous crops like millets and jowar.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The data, the history, the science, it all points to one singular reality. The era of abundant, easily claimed water is completely over. The policies and historical advantages of the 19th century simply cannot sustain the populations and the climate realities of the 21st century. As we look at the Krishna and Cauvery basins moving forward, the ultimate question really remains: will we allow shrinking resources to divide us along artificial language and state lines, or will these crises force us to finally unite through scientifically managed cooperative survival? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.